Good afternoon. This is Michael Crystal, International President, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I'm actually coming to you from a resort in Tucson, Arizona. But more importantly, I'm pausing because I'm very excited about the work that Raphael and Daryl and Chris is doing, centered around our subject, turning a crisis into lemonade. Think about that for a second. The team is going to give you great insight on the work that we did this summer, going into the fall. As we all know, we went through a pandemic. And when you think about the pandemic and all the challenges that it was putting on our community, putting on businesses, it certainly was putting an impact on our fraternity. What we did, though, is we saw it as a huge opportunity to connect with our members in a more meaningful way. We found ourselves doing webinars, really focusing on financial literacy, really focusing on social welfare. How could we nurture the soul and the spirit of our members? And so the team is going to share insight on how do you take a not so great situation and turn it positive, that in turn will be beneficial for your organization. And I think when you come to this workshop, you're going to be very pleased with what the team has put together for you. So enjoy it. As always, thanks for all that you do to support Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you very much.
Welcome to our session, Turning Crisis into Lemonade, Membership Engagement During a Catastrophe.
Hello, I'm Chris Ray, International First Vice President of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
Hi, my name is Daryl Anderson. I'm the International Executive Director of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
Greetings, I'm Raphael Matas, Director of Membership and Training at the International Headquarters of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
2020 has turned out to be a very trying year for all of us. The coronavirus pandemic impacted our mental, emotional, physical, and financial well-being. It caused us to reevaluate our commitments and expenditures. For some, this meant reconsidering involvement in fraternities and sororities. In this presentation, we are going to provide insight into Phi Beta Sigma's membership engagement strategies during the global pandemic. The fraternity's general board and international headquarters staff prepare a multi-pronged approach to keep collegiate and alumni members encouraged, supported, and connected throughout the pandemic. Our strategies included targeted email communication, themed virtual programming, and membership growth incentives implemented to encourage members to pay dues. Our goal in sharing our strategies is to help you think of effective ways you can scale these approaches to engage your own members. Our approach is the Phi Beta Sigma holistic engagement. Holistic by definition emphasizes the importance of the whole and the interdependence of the parts. During this time, we highlighted the importance of the brotherhood experience Phi Beta Sigma provides its members, and strategically demonstrated the value of key aspects of fraternity operations that contribute to the overall experience of Sigma men. The pandemic emphasized the value of clear messaging that aligns with an organization's identity and its core values. Phi Beta Sigma has clearly defined our identity and fraternal principles and infused them into our communication with key stakeholders. To help convey our messaging, we adopted the tagline, "A brotherhood of conscious men actively serving our communities." The tagline synthesizes our values into a catchphrase that plainly describes who we are and what we do. Notice we lead with the word brotherhood. This is intentional. Our goal is to remind our members that at the end of the day, we are a fellowship dedicated to supporting each other and the people around us. As an example, we will play a short clip of our international recruitment video developed by our International Membership Committee.
Men of vision, men of service, men of culture, men of leadership. Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated is an international organization that has become a legacy of excellence. The lineage of greatness began on January 9th, 1914, with three noble founders, the Honorable Abram Langston Taylor, Honorable Leonard Francis Morse, and Honorable Charles Ignatius Brown on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. These proud men formed a chain of esteemed scholars, striving to make a difference in society through the principles of brotherhood, scholarship, and service. The diversity of their membership was the unique attraction to Sigma. With culture for service and service for humanity as their motto, the Brotherhood was able to advance a variety of human causes, including civil and equal rights and service to America's communities. Inclusion, rather than exclusion, is the ethical foundation of Phi Beta Sigma's membership. Decade after decade, Sigma has captured within its ranks great men of America's history. We are doctors, lawyers, educators, political leaders, activists, athletes, businessmen, entertainers, scientists, and more. Over 100 years since its founding, and with over 200,000 members initiated, the Brotherhood has evolved into one of the nation's oldest predominantly African American institutions. Sigma men are the high achievers, movers, and shakers of their times.
This is all about being holistic in the process of engaging our brothers. This was a critical moment for not just Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, but for all fraternal organizations. If there's ever a wraparound time, it is that. And so you assess what you have as a part of your disaster preparedness program, and you walk out there and you put together something that will keep the members actively involved as we all work through this crisis. So it's important for us as a fraternity, as Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, to understand that we've already established an identity. We have to be able to maintain that identity during the crisis and be able to get others involved in how this will work, whether or not there's going to be any rebranding, whether or not there's going to be any re-engineering, but making sure that everyone that is involved with the process is aligned with the plan. So we were coming off of a very successful year when it comes to membership services and membership engagement. 2019 was a banner year, and we were looking forward to 2020. We had already had a successful conclave. We had the highest amount of registration for our conference in Las Vegas. But more importantly, as a brotherhood, we maintain a sense of what we need to do for our communities. Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity actually documented over 363,000 hours of community service that took us all the way up into 2020. And we were proud of that's the largest number of documented community service hours that we've ever had as a fraternity. Additionally, Phi Beta Sigma gave out $1.2 million worth of scholarships in 2019. Additionally, Phi Beta Sigma actively engages with its youth mentoring program. We have over 2,500 young men across the United States who are working with our alumni chapters to understand what their trajectory is going to be in life. We want them exposed to things that are going to give them an opportunity to go to college. And we were on a great trajectory at the beginning of 2020 to continue that mission. And then 2020 came. So in the beginning, full engagement with our members, looking at an opportunity to increase our membership base. We worked feverishly in the first quarter of 2020 to maintain those who would actually be coming from our 2019 operation year into our 2020 operational year. We established goals for membership engagement. And when we got through into the first quarter of the year, the entire membership team worked on developing programs that would keep our members engaged. So we made it into the third month of the year, and we actually surpassed the goals that had been set in 2019, but 2020 became 2020. So as most of you know, and there's no way around it, COVID-19 settled in on everyone, and Phi Beta Sigma was not impervious to the circumstance. The novel coronavirus brought about an opportunity for us to look at what we were doing and say, hey, how can we continue to function, especially for our collegiate members on college campuses? Because if you get too engrossed in the process, all that you would think about is, how is this virus going to affect me? And because we have been so blessed with a lot of things that we have received, we had to come up with initiatives and programs that supported our members as they went out to help others who were adversely affected by COVID-19. Again, we did understand that our members were going to be challenged in this process. But our mission as a headquarters team, our mission as a volunteer team was to make sure that the brothers understood they still had a mission. They had to continue to be engaged with the communities. That's where we got new members, and that's where people needed to see us. They didn't need to see us hiding from the process. They needed us to work with the scientists to get the message out about how we can continue to work in these environments and to provide something that engaged our members and provided them with opportunities to shine. We were challenged. Our membership intake programs actually start in January. That process was not due to be completed until April, based on whatever time you started. But we went into the coronavirus process and we went into shutdown. And our shutdown occurred in March. So 80 of our chapters had started, and 80 of them had to make a decision based on what our campus-based partners were telling them. You can't have face-to-face interaction. As you're training your members, you have got to come up with a new way. And so 80 of them had to suspend operations. From a headquarters standpoint, we learned a new word. And with the new word called teleworking and teleconferencing, we had to make sure that we understood that members need to continue to have a relationship with us, even though we were not going to be located where we typically would be located. So we had to change operations. And part of changing operations is talking to your partners, talking to your members and saying, okay, this is the plan. This is how we're going to go forward. And we're very proud of the steps that Phi Beta Sigma took in engagement. Part of our membership engagement was to let the universities know how we were going to move forward with the rest of the semester going into the summer and coming into the fall. So Phi Beta Sigma actually documented its actions, its action plan, its strategy for getting through the spring going into the summer. We established webinars. We invited our campus-based partners to participate in those webinars. We worked with our vendors and other partners who had deliverables that were supposed to be gotten to those who had paid for it. But just like our operations were impeded by the coronavirus, our vendors were impeded as well. And so we had to communicate that to our membership that we wanted them to stay engaged in the process, but be very transparent about what was happening. Phi Beta Sigma is an organization that believes in face-to-face engagement. That is how we make sure that brothers are relating to one another, connecting with one another, networking with one another. Phi Beta Sigma had scheduled 7 regional conferences in the first 4 months of 2020. 6 of our regions had to reschedule, work contracts out with hotels, work another engagement process with people who had paid for the conference to establish something that they could use in this time. And it was important for people to feel that they were still connected. And you're teaching people a new way of doing business. And we have been doing business the same way for 100 and almost 7 years. So it was a challenge for us as an organization, but the mission was still there. If we have engaged others and they really enjoyed the face-to-face interaction, how could we maintain that? How could we do that to make sure that our members knew that they had a new norm? And that was moving to virtual platforms. 6 of our conferences moved from a face-to-face process to a virtual process. And the results were we had more people who were actively engaged in our virtual process than we would have had they had a face-to-face opportunity. So again, taking a crisis and turning it into lemonade, the engagement was still there. The convenience and ease of access was there for the brothers. And we learned about technology in a way that we never learned in the past. This was an opportunity for us to understand that something that we thought would be over in a 60-day period of time, that was not going to be the outcome. The outcome was we had to change how we were going to do business. That was critical for us. And we had to stay actively engaged with our campus-based professionals and our vendors. But more importantly, we had to stay engaged with our brothers, and they had to know that there was a foundation established for them. While other things were changing around them, the thing that they wanted most in their lives to understand how Phi Beta Sigma was going to support the community and how was Phi Beta Sigma going to support them. So as we look through the other part of 2020, the other 9 months, we had developed plans, we developed strategies, we developed training processes that really were going to work for us. It was an emergent moment. It was a crisis that became lemonade for Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
So we answer the call. And we answered by anticipating challenges and responding while we were in control. So we had to assess, are we heading towards a crisis situation? So we looked at crisis communication scholarship, and here's what we found. Based on the literature, we asked ourselves these 6 questions, right? So we were thinking about, was this event unpredictable? It was. We weren't expecting the situation we found ourselves in. Did it threaten our organizational operations? It absolutely did, as we already mentioned. Does it threaten our stakeholders' expectations? Yes, it did. Our brothers are expecting, for example, that we provide a great brotherhood experience, that we keep them safe. Campuses are expecting that we support them in their decisions and not to encourage our chapters to operate outside those confines, as an example. And so we knew that we had to respond responsibly and in a timely manner. And the reason we had to respond in a timely manner is because we knew that there were high consequences for those affected. In this particular case, we're talking a matter of life and death. There was very little time for our leadership to make the decisions, and we had to act fast. So the shutting down of the 80 MIPs, the moving into telework, the revisiting expectations as far as deliverables, all these things came as a result of us making sure that we can support our members and all other key stakeholders. Can we prevent the event? Now, clearly, Phi Beta Sigma couldn't prevent the coronavirus from spreading. However, Phi Beta Sigma can play a role in preventing from putting our members and other key stakeholders in position of harm. So we apply situational crisis communication theory. It's essentially a framework that talks about managers and leaders need to develop a strategy to address a crisis situation, depending on what that potential impact could be. So we knew we had an opportunity to address the crisis before it became a crisis. And in doing so, we were going to be able to keep our members safe, our key stakeholders safe, and also preserve our organization's reputation.
Phi Beta Sigma recognized the need to act decisively through strategic choices. To do otherwise meant we faced the potential of contributing to the harm of our members and our communities. This would have been the antithesis of a brotherhood of conscious men actively serving our communities. To help us navigate our situation, we looked to corporate communication scholarship for guidance. Research in corporate communication has shown organizations should use their corporate branding to create consistency in their messaging and use social media to communicate with stakeholders. Organization narratives must be authentic and straightforward. This was the basis for our recruitment video. Our approach was influenced by 3 frameworks. Conscious capitalism is the idea that corporations should incorporate elements of social responsibility in their organizational culture. This was easy for Phi Beta Sigma to implement since it is what we do and have done since our founding almost 107 years ago. This is a significant part of our corporate identity. Corporate social responsibility speaks to a corporation's dedication to going beyond its own interests to fulfill employee moral expectations through a commitment to enhancing the quality of life for all stakeholders through effective communication and relationships. It is not enough for Phi Beta Sigma to provide the deliverables members pay for through their dues. As a brotherhood of conscious men actively serving our communities, we must go beyond enforcing our policies to vigorously fulfilling our ethical duties to raise the value of our members' lived experiences and improve the social conditions of our country. Additive change approach recommends transforming organizations by introducing change in phases. Phi Beta Sigma leveraged the pandemic to roll out systematic changes across the interdependent parts of our operations. Thus, our holistic engagement.
Now we're going to talk about number 3 of our holistic engagement. Identifying your team. Who your team is and knowing what their role is critical to your success in the middle of a crisis. So in Phi Beta Sigma, we recognize that raising the values of our membership experience is and will always be a collaboration between multiple stakeholders. So first and foremost, you have the general board. These are the individuals in between our national convention, between our conclaves, that set the overall policies that decide the direction of the fraternity. Then you have our international headquarters staff. These are the individuals who execute the directives of the general board. They manage the daily operations of the fraternity, and they regularly direct and deal with our key stakeholders. Then you have our membership, the individuals who is truly the driving force behind everything that we do in the organization. At the end of the day, how they're treated and how they are engaged will make all the difference. Then we have our vendors who fulfill all of our membership deliverables to our members, whether it's their fraternity pins, their certificates, membership cards, or other materials that the Brotherhood gets throughout the year. And then last and certainly not least, of course, our campus partners who work closely with our collegiate members and also with our headquarters staff as there are policy changes that may take place at the university level that we need to make sure gets to our members from time to time. So remembering there is no time or no need to be pointing fingers during a time of crisis. Identifying and knowing who your team is critical to what the next strategic move will be in addressing the challenges that are going to come your way. It's important to remember to effectively navigate any kind of crisis or any potential threats to your operations, your team, especially your staff, will be stretched past their limits. This means that everyone, from the organization president down to the newest member, will need to acquire new skills and perform tasks they previously did not need to do, especially to conserve resources during uncertain times. Fortunately for Phi Beta Sigma, the depth of our team allowed for us to perform multiple and complex tasks that required learning new skills and pivoting on the spot to manage shifting priorities. And so during this time period, knowing that you're going to be stressed, we also always tell all our leaders, stop, take a deep breath. Know that there are going to be some challenging times on the way, but we will address them together by knowing the capacity of your team and knowing what they're capable of doing, but also then reminding them that along this next journey, there will be new skills that you're going to have to acquire if we're trying to still reach the end goal, which is to make sure that we're servicing our members and carrying out the mission of the organization.
So we talked about establishing our identity and creating brand alignment. We talked about anticipating challenges and responding while we're in control. And we also talked about identifying your team. So for our team, as we stated, brothers are a very important part of our team. So for us, it was important to meet our members where they are. So one of the things that we did to meet our brothers' need, we went into where they are. For Phi Beta Sigma, we have a Facebook group. Now it's an unofficial group and it's not run or monitored by the fraternity. And so while it is unofficial and not, we know that brothers engage here, that brothers air their frustrations and concerns, but also sing praises there. So as we did some crowdsourcing and put some ideas out there, we saw our members' response. And the number one thing for them at the start of the pandemic was that they expected their fraternity to really respond with brotherhood first. We need to meet our members where they are. We know that our members use social media because we track those analytics. And so we use Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. These are the major social media platforms we use to deliver messages. One of the things about our headquarters team, we have a great communication staff that understands how to leverage each platform to get word out and communication out to our members and to provide them with resources that they would then feel empowered as they navigate the fraternity experience during the pandemic.
So as a part of our holistic engagement process, we had to work through a strategy that would work best for our members. With this next step, it was not just about the members, it was about the entire population. Behavior change is hard. Tackling a pandemic makes it even harder, but there has to be a baseline established. And for most people, that baseline is going to be considered a sense of normalcy. The challenge is you were establishing a new norm at a time and you did not know that it was important. But as leaders in a fraternal organization, as partners with our campus-based professionals, it was important for us to recognize that there is a norm, that everyone can be a part of the norm. It was just a matter of finding out what that norm was going to be from this point forward. Phi Beta Sigma has international conference calls and town halls. We had already published the schedule. It was important for us to keep that schedule. Phi Beta Sigma also generates reports to our membership. It was important for them to know that as a headquarters operation, we were still doing business as usual. It was important for us to order deliverables, even though our vendors were challenged by the pandemic as well. Because we were working on a new schedule for the deliverables, what we felt was important was to communicate that to the members who had established a level of expectation that had to be met. But as an operation challenged by the circumstances, it was important that we tell them the truth, tell them how we were going to function. So every time we got an update from a vendor, we just communicated the new norm to them. Additionally, Phi Beta Sigma as a headquarters was operating under governmental principles. So every time things changed in Washington, D.C., and we were establishing new timelines, new curfews, we simply communicated that to the members. Why? Because truth is important. Transparency is important. And if you're going to take a crisis and turn it into lemonade, truth could be the sugar that's going to sweeten it. So that was important for us. Additionally, there was time for us to have dues paid. We had to communicate that to the brothers. But normally, you've talked about how dues need to be established at the beginning of the year. Because our new norm had been established and our members had a different expectation level, we moved to an old school method using electronic means. We simply started to invoice the members for everything that we needed them to pay. Not so much to say you hadn't done it, but as a reminder, in the new norm, this is one more thing that you need to add to your electronic plate, because everything was becoming virtual. We had to figure out a way that they understood that these were challenging times. You need the funds in order to continue to have operations. There had to be a sense of relief applied to this as well. So one of the strategies Phi Beta Sigma used was to say, okay, at this time of the year, we normally have late fees. We wanted the brothers to understand that we were compassionate about their circumstances without jeopardizing the operation. So the general board voted to waive our late fees, to give the brothers an opportunity to understand that we truly want them to continue to be engaged in the process, and it worked very well for us. We were able to maintain the same ratios that we'd had in terms of membership and understanding that the brothers knew that they were contributing not to the organization itself, but to the programs that we established by paying those dues.
So right before the pandemic started, we were scheduled to initiate 2 new honorary members. Our brother Bill Duke, renowned actor, and brother Wayne Brady, actor and producer. Their initiation was scheduled for right in the middle of the pandemic. And of course, we didn't realize there would be a pandemic, so we had to postpone it. So when the opportunity became safe and available, the 2 went through and completed their process. And so we were very excited about that. Why? Because we knew that we'd taken a different approach with our honorary members. And so we were going to engage them and help us elevate the brand of our programs. But we also knew that because of their reputation as actors and what they do in their own philanthropic work, that our members would feel excitement around Brother Duke and Brother Brady. And so that really turned out very well. We're talking a little bit how we engaged them after their initiation.
To create a sense of normalcy for our chapters, we wanted to make sure that our chapters continue to engage in signature programs that we knew that we do every single year. And we didn't want to skip out on those programs, whether they were virtual or they were going to be in person. One of those initiatives was our Real Talk initiative, where chapters tuned in and listened to elected officials, along with other key leaders in our communities that discuss issues and challenges of the day and how Phi Beta Sigma can move forward in making sure that we continue to engage our community strategically. But then there's also our Sigma Day of Service, where all of our chapters around the world on one single day engages in service. Really excited about that type of initiative, because you think through the process that many of the chapters were not together, many of them had not seen each other for a long time, many of the brothers, and that was the one time in September that they were able to come out of their homes, come out from the places that they were hiding, and come together and do a day of service for the organization. One of the things I'm always excited about, being the International First Vice President, is still finding ways to grow our organization. And even in the midst of this crisis, we still was able to charter chapters, 2 collegiate chapters and 2 alumni chapters. This is still critical to helping to build continued confidence in our brothers across the country, that we're still growing as an organization, that we're still engaging new talent, that the lifeblood of the fraternity, which is always our members, and bringing in new individuals, that we're always finding ways to still expand our fraternity on college campuses and in communities around the country. And lastly, scholarship. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we continue to implore with our members is, number one, we still did opportunities where we raise money for our chapters and for our members, for them to apply for scholarships that they can continue to further their education. But then we also recognize the importance of celebrating our graduates, not just our undergraduate brothers, but all brothers who graduated in the class of 2020, brothers who were getting their master's degree, brothers who were getting their doctoral degree. We knew that our members, that their lives had changed, that they weren't going to get the celebration that they were accustomed to and that they were looking forward to. But as an organization, we recognize the importance of making sure that we celebrate the milestones that these individuals were doing during this time period.
We had to remember, and we've already mentioned this, that we have over 2,500 young men who are actually in high school, who are being mentored by members of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and they too had to graduate. So much like the pandemic affected the graduation for our collegiate members who are actually a part of Phi Beta Sigma, we had to kind of keep an eye on what was going on with those that we were mentoring who lost their graduation year as well. So Phi Beta Sigma, in an effort to continue the engagement process, had a virtual graduation for our Sigma Beta Club members. And at that time, we passed out scholarships just like they would have received had they had an opportunity to participate in their high school's graduation. And we had a special message that was delivered by one of our honorary members who became the face of our youth mentoring program, Brother Wayne Brady. Additionally, one of the things that Phi Beta Sigma does is launch its biennial conference promotions during the year prior to the actual conference. Our conference is going to occur in 2021, but that means the launch had to take place in 2020. And there had to be a significant amount of engagement with that conference because people pay fees to register for that conference. And so we had to be transparent with them because we weren't sure how people were going to be able to navigate through the process. But it was critically important for us as a fraternal organization. We had to send a message out that said, hey, we need you to register for this conference. But as a point of engagement, people need to know if this conference didn't take place, what would happen? So we had to change policy and say, if you members, if that for some reason that registration was not possible because of the pandemic, we were going to refund 100% of the money that you paid for the conference. So that was critical in the communication to the brothers. It established what we consider an effective process for them to kind of back out of it if they needed to, but to understand that they were still being fully engaged with the norm of the organization, but they would get their money back, which was important to them. Additionally, to support the whole concept that Phi Beta Sigma recognizes that our members are engaged to some extent with their communities now, even during the pandemic, much like everything else that was coming from the National Institute of Health and all other infectious disease agencies, we had to get with the program and give people an opportunity to say that I can function in this. You want us to wear face masks? Okay, Phi Beta Sigma has a face mask. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma. I'll buy this face mask so the community can see that I'm still engaged, but I'll protect my health as well. Critically important for our members to understand that we were supporting them in their effort to continue to do what we do as a brotherhood of conscious men, actively serving those communities. But we wanted that active service to actually be safe for them. So we created something that they can use that continues the branding of the organization.
And of course, number 6, my favorite number, recognize, impact, and provide support. So in late March, we recognized as a leadership team the effect that COVID-19 was having on individuals, specifically our members. So we scheduled an international conference call to help provide resources, facts, address misconceptions, and answer a lot of our brothers' questions. We were committed to making sure that we follow the science, and that we had experts that was going to share the most up-to-date and current information to our brothers who were members of the medical field. This event was so successful that we decided to launch several virtual engagement series around the topic. So we followed up in April with a webinar series centered on our international programs of Bigger Better Business, Social Action, and Education. These virtual engagement programs offered resources to help our brothers navigate the effects of this pandemic. For example, we provided resources for brothers who became unemployed, for those who own small businesses. Our Sigma Cares program, a group of Sigma men who are clergymen, hosted a series of interfaith services to help our members connect spiritually. They also helped the fraternity compile a list of brothers whom we had lost during COVID-19 as our members reported those individuals, and we were able to provide support for the families of those brothers that passed away from COVID-19.
So one of the things about shifting into now virtual environments, we recognize our chapters were not used to operate from that mode of operations. We know that our chapters were used to the in-person facilitation of events, community service projects, meetings, etc. So we knew we had to provide them with the right kind of support. So in order to help facilitate virtual brotherhood engagement, we held some education around how do you leverage virtual platforms and what are some best practices to support them. One of the things that we did, we reached into our own brotherhood because, of course, part of being able to buy into something is to see someone who is currently doing from your own group, and so that way you know that it's actually working. One of our alumni chapter presidents from a very large alumni chapter, very well-known chapter, who's very actively engaged and has a myriad of members, right? From young, recently college grads to members who have been in the fraternity now for 40, 50 years. We asked him to lead a discussion in terms of what are some things that his chapter did to engage the community, engage members, and keep the morale up within the chapter. That actually went over very well. We started to do it over Facebook Live as a free program, and we still did it free, but we realized halfway through it that it wasn't quite working, so then we switched over into Zoom. And so that was a great lesson for us to learn on how to manage technology, so that helped us out in the long run as well. So that's one of the things that we did. And so again, as you look into navigating pandemic or any kind of crisis where you're trying to do some changes, you have to recognize, again, meet your brothers where they are, and so provide them with the support that they need to feel successful. We also wanted to give our brothers opportunity to let them enjoy themselves and commune. And so we did some virtual happy hours. We invited our own Sigma brothers who are professional DJs at no cost to the fraternity. They got on our fraternity Instagram and they were playing music. Now, this is a twofold strategy. One is engaging our members and letting them know that, hey, we're doing this for you. We're here for you. The pandemic is a lot to handle, but we just want you to have an opportunity to go and relax for a moment. So we're going to do this for you. So that's a part of it, that emotional support. But also very strategically, it's also driving traffic into an Instagram page to generate followers, get more exposure to other people who then can see our activities and then promote them within their social networks.
So one of the other engagements that we had during the time period was encouraging our brothers to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. The pandemic took a hold of many individuals. And so as we tried to make sure that our brothers was thinking through this through the mind, body, and spirit. So we also make sure that we encourage our brothers during Men's Health Month in June, that they're not allowing the stress of COVID and the impact that they may have been going through to impact their health. But we also made sure that the brothers was reaching out to one another, making sure that it was checking in on one another. So number 7, create a sense of belonging. As we talk through the whole holistic engagement piece, creating a sense of belonging is critical when you're in the midst of a crisis. We don't want individuals to feel that they're going through it by themselves. And depending on the type of crisis that the organization may be going through, there's things that has to be done to make sure that the little things aren't dropped along the way because we're no longer interacting or engaging with one another the way that we used to.
Phi Beta Sigma had already established a baseline that we felt would work. After you've had 50 years of good service in Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, you would get recognition. You get things from the organization that commemorate that activity. And we'd already planned to start a lower level of recognition for the baseline. And that new baseline was the 25th year. So in 2020, we felt that it was really important to continue to recognize those milestones. And so we took opportunities to actually post announcements in an electronic format of those who had reached the 25th year of being a member of Phi Beta Sigma, those who had reached the 50th year of being a member of Phi Beta Sigma. And we gave them something that they could use that kind of highlight the fact that they had achieved that. Again, supporting the sense of worth, but still understanding that you get that because you do the work of the organization. Additionally, it was important for us to recognize brothers who were actively engaged in the fight. So we had an initiative that recognized those who were first responders and essential healthcare workers, terms that had become more relevant during the pandemic, but we felt that it was important for us to recognize them and to let the world know that we had members who were actively engaged in helping to save lives. Additionally, we'd always had a military affairs initiative, but we felt that it was more important at this time to get their names out there so that they could be recognized by the membership and by those in the community to see the work that they were doing. And we put things in their hands so that they could look down and say, the fraternity still remember me at this time of crisis. Because this is a partnership and because we're not in this alone, it was time for us to look at how we could work with our partners to make sure that what we were doing in a sense of transparency could actually be communicated effectively to those who were being served by the organization and those who actually provide the service within the organization. So there were several things that we did. We have a partnership, we have an agreement with the Ralph Lauren Corporation to work through resources that have not been directly accessible to others, but are now accessible between Ralph Lauren and Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. As a point of engagement, and they understood how we were trying to publicly get our message out, Ralph Lauren actually granted us billboard space in two major cities, New York and LA. And they said, we would normally use this space during this time, but your message is important to us and we're your partner. So are you okay with putting your message on these billboards in these major cities so that others can see what you're doing? That was an opportunity for us. And so in a minute of all of the protests that were going on and all of the engagement that Phi Beta Sigma had with those who were affected by the protest, it was important for us to get our message out.
So during the pandemic, we had a huge civil unrest going on in the nation. And one of the things that Phi Beta Sigma always encourages their members to do is to responsibly participate in peaceful demonstrations. We made sure that we published the guidelines for our brothers so that they were able to demonstrate responsibly and safely, and making sure that they were able to not only showcase the fraternity, showing that we were there in the midst as an organization, but also individually so that they were safe during those time periods. So when we talk about leveraging our relationships and leveraging our strategic partnerships, one of the things that we did during this time period is that we did a real reform, people, policies, and policing virtual town hall where we brought together key leaders like the president of the NAACP and the police chief of the LAPD. It was probably one of the most powerful virtual town halls that the organization has ever engaged in. We had members from Zeta Phi Beta sorority. We had police chiefs that were from small towns, medium-sized cities, and of course, big cities like Los Angeles. We had retired police chiefs that were also engaging on the panel, along with other elected officials that was able to share with our members their thought processes on police reform in America. So again, our relationships that we had with some of these organizations and entities, we were able to bring them together in a solid program that allowed for us to educate not only our members, but also the community. As we talk about continuing to engage with our strategic partners, we made sure that we galvanized our members to vote and be a part of the 2020 election cycle. This was a major programmatic focus for us as an organization. We also used this as an opportunity to generate revenue for our retail store through our Vote t-shirts. One of the things that we encouraged our chapters to do at the local level was not only register people to vote, but also that they educated them on the voting process, whether there were candidates that they needed to educate their community about, or initiatives that were going to be on the ballot, and lastly, making sure that they got people to the polls on election day. Those were the three critical things that we pushed to our chapters.
And one of the goals that we had set was to make sure that our membership had a sense of belonging. And a part of the belonging comes from recognizing, again, milestones and achievements that have been made by the members of the organization. And an opportunity presented itself, one that we had heard about, but we just wasn't, we weren't sure of how the timeline was going to work. One of our fraternity brothers, astronaut Victor Glover, was about to be launched into space. He was going to stay at the NASA docking station for over 6 months. And so he reached out to us. He wanted us to make sure that the brothers had an opportunity to be engaged with him and walk with him on this journey. Again, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of belonging, a sense of opportunity for members of the organization. It really goes back to the value proposition, as has been stated by Brother Ray. What are you getting from this? You're getting an opportunity to celebrate someone's achievements. You're getting a chance to feel a sense of connection, a sense of networking with someone who was a million miles away, who was a member of your organization. That was critically important for us as an organization.
As you all know, this summer, we lost the civil rights icon, the Honorable Brother John Lewis, who was a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma. We utilized this occasion as an opportunity for us to engage by promoting activities that raised the profile of our fraternity and called on our members to actively serve in their communities. But we used his untimely passing as an opportunity to elevate the cause of service in our communities, utilizing opportunities to use the prominent members of your organization to be able to push the mission of your organization, bringing brothers together and making sure that they have an opportunity for them to engage their communities.
So after doing all these things, we utilize this as an opportunity to drive change. We looked at the future of our brotherhood. We took this opportunity to figure out where were we heading? And now because of this, can we get there at a much faster rate? And does it make sense for us to make that necessary leap?
So in that process of looking at the future and how we're going to move the organization forward, we explored alternative means to facilitate typical Sigma business, such as our board meetings via video conferencing. We limited the access to dues-paying members, of course, but we created an environment where brothers had the capacity to take a peek into what the leadership was doing, where we were going, and making sure that they had an opportunity to participate by providing feedback to key leaders in real time and being able to be a part of the process. One of the key things that came out of this era was our International Membership Committee met and developed social distancing MIP guidelines. We encourage our chapters and especially those who canceled MIP in the spring, to host summer intake. In that case, many of our collegiate chapters, we supported that summer with intake as long as their school was supportive of them having summer MIP. But it was critical for us to provide to our members social distancing guidelines in order for them to be able to participate in future membership intake process procedures. The same with our International Membership Committee. We created an international virtual initiation, which was not only the first for Phi Beta Sigma, but we were the first in the Divine Nine to put together a virtual initiation ceremony for our members to be able to participate in. This was game-changing for us because we knew that our brotherhood was used to always having it face-to-face. And what we did was looked at opportunities where they could still have the traditional face-to-face initiation, or they could have a modified initiation, or they could have a virtual initiation. This was a game changer for the organization just because of the rampant COVID that was in some places that made it impossible for members to meet.
In July of 2020, we introduced our Sigma Learning Center, which is our cloud-based learning management system. So as far as talking about learning to leverage opportunities to drive forth change and to look into the future, Phi Beta Sigma was very interested in developing virtual means by which to train, develop, and educate our brothers. We thought the timing worked out well as far as introducing the LMS. The first course that we introduced was a risk management at a glance. And so our goal was to have 10,000 of our members completed. And so far right now, we're at 19.5% completion. Part of that has to do with brothers understanding when they needed to complete it. And since some of them were not sure about operations in the fall, thought they would wait to see what was happening. But now we're making a push to get it done. So we understand there's a lot of communication needs to happen there. But we were very excited about that. And so one of the advantages of doing this is not just to get our brothers better trained, help them to mitigate risks before they happen, but also to help us with their insurance premium. And so now we can actually provide quantifiable data to our insurance provider that shows them the steps that we're taking to get our members in compliance with our risk management policies. Now, we also converted our membership intake process educational modules into e-modules that we now have uploaded into our Sigma Learning Center. So in fall 2020, our MIP e-modules were optionals for chapters. Of course, we made it clear to them that starting in 2021, this was going to become the standard. But again, we wanted to use gradual change to introduce these concepts to our members. Upcoming at the end of fall 2020, we're going to update and upload our Collegiate Advisors University into our Sigma Learning Center. As far as being stretched beyond your limits and gaining some different skills to move you forward, the MIPE courses were created in-house. We launched the LMS in July, and so we weren't sure what was going to happen. So when we moved our timelines to address the potential downfalls of COVID, we had to go inside our own talent. And so the staff, we created the MIPE courses with some help from our volunteer leaders. With Collegiate Advisors University, we actually reached out to a vendor, and so together we worked to develop this.
Change is inherent in any organization. How you work that change talks about what type of organization you are. What comes out of this is that there's a new platform, and it's all built around technology. And Phi Beta Sigma had to understand how to engage its membership in these new platforms and use the data that was coming out to our advantage. So here's a chance for us, and here's a recommendation that we make to you, to take what you're getting, understand you have a new norm, create a new narrative based on the platforms that you're going to be dealing with in terms of technology as you drive membership.
Tracking our membership data inform our decisions. We monitor current year statistics, such as total dues paid and progress of incentives and drives. Compare these to past year's figures to identify trends and use the data to determine our course of action. Data is also important to construct a narrative that tells the organization's story. Always remember to report accurately, because even when the numbers look unfavorably, you can find a positive narrative based on the information available to share with your members. For example, our 2020 membership numbers were behind our 2019 membership numbers for most of the first quarter and all of the second quarter. Other indicators, such as the number of dues payments received per week, told us our 2020 progress was outperforming our year-to-date progress from 2019. This analysis let us know we were trending towards surpassing our 2019 numbers. And as the numbers predicted, our total number of dues payments received during the third quarter was 46% higher than the average of dues payments received in the third quarter for 2019, 2018, 2017, and 2016. Dues payments received in the 2020 third quarter were 38% higher than the 2019 third quarter. Why is this significant? Because it demonstrates we successfully engaged our members in a non-conclave year, where we raised membership dues while navigating a global pandemic with no visible end in sight. How did we do it? By executing a strategic playbook as a team. Our strategies included waiving the late fees on international dues, implementing a membership retention and growth competition among chapters. Every chapter that matched or exceeded their December 31st, 2019 roster of dues paid members were entered into a drawing for a chapter grant. The draft was broadcasted live via our prominent Facebook page. All chapters that qualified were read out loud and winners selected at random by Siri. We did this to be transparent about the process and control the narrative to minimize or altogether avoid claims of playing favorites. Additionally, brothers felt included in the process, and this contributed to our engagement strategy. We opened a summer 2020 intake window and shared with college campuses our social distancing compliant MIP guidelines. Our fourth quarter focus is on 2021 dues, reactivating brothers and providing a path to recognition as official members of the fraternity to brothers who were initiated at a local chapter but whose paperwork and fees did not arrive at the headquarters. As of this presentation, we have successfully surpassed our 2019 total number of financial members.
It is my hope that today that you all have got an opportunity to not only see and hear the great strategies that Phi Beta Sigma fraternity has put in place for its members during a crisis, but I'm hoping that you guys were able to pull a few nuggets away so that you can also deal with any crisis that comes your way in the future. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you for all that you continue to do for our Greek organizations out there around the world. Looking forward to engaging you all again in the future.
Thank you for your attention. We certainly appreciate the fact that you allowed us to open up, share what we went through, and now we have a new model. It was something that didn't go over well with us initially, but now we've managed to get something good out of it, and that's truly the lemonade. We have a new norm, and we want to share that new norm with you. And we hope that we've given you something that you can use that will benefit your organizations and your institutions.
We used the pandemic as an opportunity to launch our fraternity's operations well into the 21st century. While we were all concerned by the unknown, we were more terrified of what we knew was certainty. Phi Beta Sigma could not continue to operate in the old model of business as usual. We chose to look past the pandemic and boldly face the future of our brotherhood. On behalf of the Honorable Brother Michael E. Crystal, International President, our General Board, IHQ staff, and our brothers across the universe, thank you for attending our session.